It's a good ball played in for Tony Morley. Oh, he missed it! It is! Peter Will! Villa in the lead!
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to the Villa Forever podcast. I am your host, Chad Williams. Please subscribe and give this video the thumbs up. Make sure to smash that like button, and you can follow me on all audio platforms, and on a very special episode lined up. And let me know ABC Weekly Recap. This week we're going to be doing the Champions League match preview. I'm joined by my Monday show regular, Aaron Thornton, who is the host of the Football Brief, and Markus Fjortoft, who is the host of the Fussball Channel. And this is the preview, the pre-match talk show. RB Leipzig versus Aston Villa in the Champions League, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. kickoff. And it's another massive game in the Champions League, match day 6. And it was a great week for Unai Emery at Aston Villa last week. And it's been a complete turnaround. And it's such a great feeling after two back-to-back wins. The bad patch is over. And the victories against Brentford and Southampton. We've got 6 points. But a win in the Champions League can bring us a step closer to securing top 8 in the Champions League. Great to have both you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Chad.
Pleasure to be on.
Well, before we get into it, I'd just like to say, on behalf of the Villa Forever podcast, I'm wishing get well wishes to West Ham striker Mikel Antonio. I'm thinking of him at the moment. I wish him a speedy recovery. So let's talk about Saturday then. So Aaron, what was your thoughts on the Southampton game?
Well, firstly, it's great to finally be on this Monday recap session, celebrating a Villa win, because since I've been on, we've just lost every game. So it's great to have. It's great to be on. Great to celebrate a win. Do you know what, Chad? It wasn't the best performance that we've given this season, but it was one of those games where we just need to win and get over the line. And I always think those games against sort of relegation threatened teams can be a bit tricky sometimes. And there was moments in the game where I thought, oh no, are they going to equalize here? But I thought, we got the job done, and I was happy that Unai rotated the squad with some really big games coming up. So it paid off, and just glad we got that win in the end.
And when you win around Villa Park, the whole feel of the place changes. The complete feel of everything. It's a great feeling.
A good atmosphere.
Yeah. I think games like that, in let's say a Storm, when you say win 1-0, at the end of the season, that it matters, those results matter.
Yeah, and without disrespecting Southampton too much, they're games that we should be winning, and it's not.
Mhm.
It's easier said than done, isn't it? But it's you've only
Yeah.
got to beat what's in front of you. I know it's very cliche saying, but I do think with our recent form, that could have been a bit of a banana skin for us. And like you say, with the conditions and everything as well, like we really had to dig deep, and it was a really battling performance. And I think with so many changes in the squad, it was good to see that they could get the job done and really sort of play the way that I wanted them to play. So yeah, very pleased, and it was a great goal from Duran as well. Great
Yeah.
goal.
In the Premier League table, it looks so much better now. And we're trying to cement ourselves in that top 6 that we have. And we're joint 5th with Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, that makes that game against Forest on the weekend even bigger now, doesn't it? With them beating Man United yesterday, which was Saturday, was I'd say was a shock. I mean, Forest are doing very well, but I still didn't think they were going to beat Man United. So yeah, it makes that game really, really spicy. So I'm looking forward to that.
And Marcus, what did you make of it?
Well, I think in terms of the team itself, you will know better. But what I found interesting, looking as an admirer, I guess, of Aston
Yeah.
Villa, in terms of the how grand that task is of breaking into the top 4, which you guys did so excellently last season. And the challenge then is fantastic with that season, kind of building blocks and what you have with the executive management, with Emery done such a fantastic job. But then you could argue that the even more difficult task is replicating that, right? And so finding yourself now
Yeah.
with the as in Germany they say Doppelbelastung, which means obviously you got the Champions League, you got the league, and what have you, to
Yeah.
then being able to compete to that same level again in another season for Champions League, I think would surpass the achievement of last season if you were able to do it again. And so being up there now, it's pretty fascinating to see the table, because you see a lot of those mid to lower table teams around you, in terms of the Brentford, the Fulham, the Forest, the Brighton, which historically haven't been up there. So it's interesting, the teams in around there. But if we look so far this season, there's no reason why Villa can't be breaking into the top 4 and at the very least getting European spots. But I think still teams are sussing each other out and saying, okay, well, who's ending 5th, 6th,
Yeah.
7th, top 4 for that matter. You don't really know with the top of the table who's going to be there. City aren't to the same extent as they used to. So it's very interesting to see where ultimately at the end of the season these positions will be set. And I don't think we're none the wiser for it so far, I think.
Because with Unai Emery, what it is now, he's got us performing at a consistent level. I bet it's very similar to what RB Leipzig have been doing the last few seasons with Marco Rose.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, RB Leipzig's a funny case because there's the cultural context of RB Leipzig being rather broadly disliked in Germany because of it running counter, or them having creatively found themselves around the 50+1 rule in Germany. Yeah, there were protests this last weekend when they played Holstein Kiel away. Holstein Kiel will get a big fine for that, because it was a bit controversial in terms of the banners they put up. But nonetheless, RB Leipzig have, and the Red Bull kind of ownership model, have built a very exciting model, one in which they've recruited a lot of younger players with great potential. They've sold a lot of players. Most recently, we've obviously had the big names of Szoboszlai and at City that I totally blanked on. Guardiola, of course. And so it's always been a team sort of in transition. And so now I would say, if you look at the Bundesliga, I'd say RB Leipzig have the most talented team in the Bundesliga. Does that mean that they're top of the table? Not necessarily. Does that mean that they're most consistent? Not necessarily. It depends on the ambitions in terms of if they want to fight for a Bundesliga title. I think they do, but it's tough because it's a team that have probably players that are at the start of their development and maybe are a few years from peaking. And that's why you see the best players at RB Leipzig, eventually when they do peak, they go to the quote unquote bigger clubs. And so that's a challenge Marco Rose has in terms of the consistency. He started off really well, and then over the last few weeks, a month or so, it's weakened a bit. I mean, they have 0 points in the Champions League,
Yeah.
so you could call them from Red Bull to Red Null is the running joke in Germany. It's the same for Red Bull Salzburg, who have 0 points. But Marco Rose had a big last week with 2 big wins, and there were talks about him getting fired. They lost 5-1 at home to Wolfsburg, and then they bounced back
Yeah.
and beat high-flying Eintracht Frankfurt in the cup. And then, yes, bottom of the table, Holstein Kiel, but a win nonetheless. So it's an interesting which version of them will be playing against Villa tomorrow.
And also, RB Leipzig, they're a team that actually haven't been really going for a long time. They haven't been established for that long, really, have they?
No, absolutely not. I mean, they were, without having the specific year in mind, but they were bought up eventually by Red Bull under rather controversial circumstances, bought the team, changed the colors from purple to red and white, and had the Red Bull name and the logo and the whole lot. So it's a young team. I mean, it's based in East Germany as well as one of the few teams in the Bundesliga, and with a crowd ranging between 30 and 40,000. I mean, you're still getting a very established core there, but a younger team historically, nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, from a Villa point of view, let's go back to Southampton guy. It was great to see John Duran starting and scoring. So it's got to do his confidence the world of good. I don't talk about John Duran. He's always working hard to improve and get better. I think Henry doesn't like players like that.
I think, yeah, Chad, if I'm going to jump in, I think that goal really embodied what John Duran is about. If you know, from the sort of the way that he bullied the defenders physically, his pace then to outrun the defender, and then that finish was just so cool and calm. I think Duran's got everything to be a great striker, and I think what he didn't have last season was the mentality or the belief in the club and the people around him. Whereas now, I think Villa have been very smart, giving him a new contract, giving him the number 9 shirt. You know, although Ollie Watkins is the main man, you know, we still think highly of you. And I think him having a good circle of people around him, and obviously the players as well, has really sort of helped him develop, and he's maturing nicely now. And, you know, he'll sit on the bench and he'll come on and make a difference, but now he's starting games and he's still scoring. His patience is starting to really show, and he's getting rewarded for it. And I think credit to him, honestly, credit to him. And you know, I don't know if in the summer there's going to be more interest. I imagine there is, because I think there's a lot of clubs, I'm hearing a lot of clubs who are keeping an eye on him now. But while we've got him, long may he continue, long may he score goals.
And Unai Emery is the best coach to get the best out of Duran. And also, he's very confident.
Yeah, I think Unai, you know, he's just a classy manager, isn't he? Obviously, I'm going to be biased, but he's a very classy. You never hear him berate players, berate referees, berate managers. He's very calm, and I think that then comes across with the players. I think what he'll do is he gives players time and he helps them change and adapt their game. Leon Bailey, for example, he's been off form arguably all season. Yet Unai Emery is one of these coaches that wants to play. He wants to play a player through the confidence. So, like, you know, giving Leon Bailey more minutes, sort of making him play more, trying to build that confidence up. I think, you know, it's very, very good man management, and I think we're seeing that, you know, with Duran now as well. So, yeah, credit to Unai and the coaching staff.
And physically, he's a nightmare to play against. But his physicality, he puts himself out there And he's got good height. He wins those aerial duels as well.
Yeah, what is it everyone says about him? It's chaos. Chaos is coming off the bench now because you just don't quite know what you're going to get with him. I mean, he's going to, he's arguably going to score a goal, but in terms of on the pitch, when he comes on, he just runs. He gets into defenders, he shoulder barges. He's just he reminds me of a sort of striker from, dare I say, the 90s. A bit more old school. He's not afraid to get in there and rough it up a bit. And yeah, I love that personality. I think now that he's sort of just maturing slightly, I think he's got the perfect balance. So he's just got to keep going and keep scoring.
Marcus, have you been impressed with Duran?
Absolutely. I mean, you said it there, and as well in terms of chaos, but you remind us a bit of that physical presence. I remember as a center back. I mean, you think of dealing with someone like that, it would be a nightmare. And the fact that you have someone like Duran that can complement sort of Watkins as well. Whether if Watkins had obviously a standing last season as well, to bring in someone like Duran, and we saw that against Bayern of course as well. Having those two to play off of, and I'm an Arsenal fan, so obviously with Emery, I'm glad to see him doing well. But it's also having those alternatives up top, and having those different strings to play off of. And there you have, if you can even bring someone like Duran, I'm sure he wants to be more regularly featured in the starting level, but to have someone to bring on like that is of enormous use for Villa, of course.
Yeah.
And Duran, he's such an impact. Though he's always making something happen when he's starting or even off the bench. He's an important player.
Absolutely. And it's also credit to, you mentioned it, but credit to Emery in terms of managing him. I get the impression that he's a young lad as well, and there's ways to manage that. I mean, arguably some of the better managers will be good at managing that, and managing expectations, and managing playing time, and getting them feeling involved and whatnot. And I get the impression from what I read and what comes with it, that Emery's done a good job at that as well. And I don't think that should be underestimated.
And going into this Champions League game, at the weekend, we made a few changes. So all the players will be ready to go for this game. And we've gave a few a rest. Which I think was a good idea doing that. Don't rotate the team. And Morgan Rogers. I mean, I really like Morgan Rogers. He was magnificent again. And I think he's going to be crucial tomorrow night. But you can see he's always trying to make things happen. Did you enjoy his performance, Aaron?
Man, I always love Morgan Rogers' performance. I mean, I have to admit, we spoke about it last week. He was one of the players suffering for loss of form. And I was worried that because he's such a young player, that as good as Emery is at managing players, I was thinking, is he managing him well? Is he playing too many games? Should we be resting him? Because he was looking a bit leggy, a bit tired. But I don't know, since he's got his new haircut, this bleach blonde hair, he seems to have become a different player, or back to the player that we know. So no, it's good to see he was back to his sort of majestic self, just gliding around in that sort of number 10 role on the weekend. And sorry, yeah, and he's going to be, he's one of our most important players now, which is crazy when you think he's not even been there for a year now, and he came from Middlesbrough with the expectation that he'll eventually get into the team, and it'll take a while. He's got to develop, but he just sort of took it in his stride, and has just gone on to different levels consistently. So he's now one of our most important players, so we've got to look after him. And I think if we want good things to happen, or goals to come, he's going to be a player that we look to really to add that influence on the ball and sort of get the team forward.
Do you think it's useful to have good ball carriers in your team? I think it's very important.
Yeah.
I'll go through a few players which I enjoyed their performances. I thought John McGinn, he had a good game. I mean, he was all over the pitch. He didn't stop running. I like the way he wins the ball back. I like his tenacity. And he really got us further up the pitch into attacking positions. And somebody else who impressed me as well, Ian Matson. He had so much space on that left-hand side. He was constantly going forward. And he brings you some energy into the game. And he's sort of like competing with Luca Digne.
I always rated Maatsen also from seeing him in Dortmund last season, and I thought it was an excellent signing for Villa to have someone like Maatsen. He was such a, as the game progresses and modernizes, these fullbacks become equally as much attacking contributors. And to see the impact Maatsen can have, I mean, he had a tremendous impact at Dortmund last season, tremendous. And so, similar to how you're covered up front, also on left back, Lucas Digne is also a very good left back, I rate. But to have those two as sort of attacking options as much as anything as well, is of such great advantage for you.
Borussia Dortmund, when Matson played for them, he was in the Champions League team of the season last year, and he got to the final against Real Madrid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Excellent. Absolutely.
Player.
No, I totally agree.
I mean, Ian Matson as well. I like the way he gets by the byline with the overlap as well.
Yeah.
It just shows, really, I think. We've got a lot of strength in depth.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that's how you handle the Champions League, right? That you have to have that, and that you can afford to rest players a bit against Southampton. But yeah, Aaron, I don't know if you want to supplement anything further on that.
No, you literally spot on. Yeah, I think just on squad depth, I was going to say the same thing. But it is crazy, isn't it? How I think when Emery first came in, Luca Digne was very much like the writings on the wall for him. And he brought in Alex Moreno from Sevilla, I believe, and it was like, okay, is he going to challenge? And he was doing okay for a while, and then Luca Digne stepped up. We then get in Maatsen, who I agreed last year at Dortmund was one of these standout players, and he now can't get minutes really because Luca Digne stepped up again. He's now back in the French national team, banging in free kicks. Like it's such a luxury to have these class players. And I don't know, from your point of view, Marcus, is it sort of bizarre to see Maatsen on the bench? Is it sort of like how, or do you sort of understand it from a Villa point of view, or do you think he should be starting more?
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid point, and it's important with the context of Luca Digne's situation in mind, right? And you have to just give all credit to him, and I love stories like that because it shows the resolve some of these players have to go through as well, in terms of managers coming with certain preconceptions or certain preferences, so to speak. So it's as much a credit to Digne as it is a less indictment of Maatsen in a way. Of Digne being able to keep someone like that out of the team, because he would score in the Champions League semi-final, like you say, Chad. He was in the Champions League team of the season. So yeah, a great luxury problem to have, and all credit to Digne for keeping someone like that out of the team, I'd say, more than anything else.
Yeah,
Luca Digne, He's got a wonderful left foot. The way he just whips it in. I'll tell you what I like as well. It was, I think, Boubacar Kamara.
Mm,
I think he's made a real difference to Villa as well.
agreed. Just on Luca Dina, just quickly, he's arguably been our best player of the season so
I
far.
agree.
He's been that good. Just to get that in.
And
And
he's
Boubacar
consistent.
Kamara. He's like a role model as well, isn't he? So as much as he's keeping Matson out, you think a player like Matson, who's young and up and coming, he's looking up to Dina thinking, do you know what? Like, that's what I want to be. I want to be at that age. Not that he's old, but in terms of football years, he's getting to the latter end of his career, and it's like, I want to be that good when I'm that old. So I think it's just a really good balance of experience and youth, and it's a good environment to be in for Matson in that respect. And just on Boubacar Kamara, Chad, what a player! We've missed him.
Yeah. He's solid. He's such a solid player to have. And what I like about him as well, he shields that back four. He got more protection.
Yeah. I think you said it a couple of weeks ago on the pod, and when we were talking about reshuffling our defense and what can we do to stop leaking goals. And I think firstly you said Tyrone Mings, who came in against Brentford and was outstanding, considering it was his first start in over a year after that horrible injury, was amazing. And then the other thing you said was Boubacar Kamara coming back and just being, just sort of doing that dirty work and just tidying up and just mopping up. And
Interceptions.
But then on the turnover as well, he can get the ball, turn over, and just give it out to the channel. Like, he's so good, and he's very. We're a much better team with him in it.
I mean, defend better, I think.
Yeah.
So, Marcus, let's talk about tomorrow night. So, what do you expect for RB Leipzig?
Well, I expect it's an RB Leipzig that will be more higher in confidence with a little momentum going in based off the last couple of games. I think you should expect to see a team that is highly talented, but that maybe lacks sometimes that necessary experience, so to speak. I mean, maybe they're deviating a bit from their model in terms of recruiting only younger players, but nonetheless, there will be younger players there. More pronounced players. Obviously, you have Šeško, who plays up front for Leipzig. That is arguably one of the more in demand and high value strikers in world football. Hasn't hit the same kind of heights as we'd hoped for in the Bundesliga, but now scored in the cup a great goal in the cup against Eintracht Frankfurt. Scored against Holstein Kiel as well. A nuisance. You have someone like Nusa, who is my fellow countryman from Norway as well, who I love watching play. I think he is, and you see that in his output as well. I think if you look at talented players, you ultimately look at, where is the output? And Nusa, in terms of his vision for the game, in terms of his assists, is a real joy to watch. And I try to stay as objective when I say that, but truly. And so I think it's a big matchup. I mean, Leipzig, they played Juve at home. They had some tough games. They played Inter, and it'll be a close game nonetheless. But I'm pretty interested in this matchup because RB Leipzig, very talented team. Villa come with obviously their strengths, and with Red Bull, or we don't say Red Bull. We actually RB Leipzig. They have 0 points, so they have a sort of point to prove. And I think it's important for Marco Rose to have sort of his credibility intact because they're out of the they're out of the title race as far as I'm concerned. And they need some kind of redemption in the Bundesliga, at least, or in the Champions League, sorry, to maybe have a chance at what we can call qualifying with 3 games remaining.
Go look at Champions League. At the moment, RB Leipzig are 34th. So they're in elimination.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to turn it around.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not good enough from RB Leipzig, and for a club that have at the very least gone out of the group stages and been in the last 16, maybe in quarterfinals at times, got to semifinals with under Nagelsmann as well. It's a club that want to take that next level. And then it goes back to what I said earlier in terms of to what degree do they make, how deliberate are they in their ambitions to fight for titles, to be in the Champions League when they also sell their best players? And I don't think they expected to sell the amount of key players as they did in one key window through Szoboszlai and Guardiola, etc., etc. But nonetheless, I think they would have hoped to have been more in contention than they have been so far. And that's been a disappointment considering how RB Leipzig started this season. They were top of the Bundesliga. They hadn't lost. They had barely conceded goals. They ended Leverkusen's unbeaten streak in the Bundesliga. Things were starting well. And then over the last month or so, it's dipped. And so it's been a bit of a moment of, I mean, do you continue with Marco Rose? What's our recruitment model? Which players do we lean into? And so maybe it would have been more preferable for Villa to meet them a week or so ago when they were very low and they lost 5-1 to Wolfsburg, but they bounced back. And so that's why I think it'll be interesting to see what version you come up against RB Leipzig.
I think on tomorrow, I expect a different challenge. But that's what Unai Emery, that's what he knows about his job as well. He likes to have different challenges. But I think as well, it's going to be a hostile atmosphere. Very similar to the Club Brugge game. Hopefully not the result, obviously, though. But then RB Leipzig, though, the fans generate a great atmosphere.
Yeah, they generally do. It's not as pronounced as maybe some of the ultras or what you have at Eintracht or Dortmund, what have you, but it's still a good atmosphere. I'd recommend anyone to go to generally a Bundesliga game as well. And so Villa will have to do well, because once RB Leipzig have confidence and with the talent they have, they're a tough matchup. I mean, if they start with a suspected kind of double up front with Šeško and Openda, that's for me one of the most electric striking partnerships in Germany at the very least. And so with a Nusa there, a Baumgartner who's arguably Austria's key player, and with that in mind, I mean, then you have to be careful, because for Villa this is an important game, and I'm sure you can provide more insight on this. But in terms of getting a win here and where you're placed, I believe it's 9th or what have you, and getting into the top 8. I mean, it would be a massive win with 3 games remaining.
Well, really, we put ourselves in a very good position. We're on 10 points. And I think with Aston Villa, I think in this game, we need to manage the game. 90 minutes of concentration.
Yeah. I think, firstly, I think I've been impressed with Leipzig, considering they've been, they were founded in 2009, around that time. I think to consistently be in the Champions League and to, have won a bit of silverware in that short amount of time is no easy feat. So fair play to them for that. There is a matchup that I'm quite interested in. So I watched the game in pre-season over in America. Leipzig Villa. Leipzig won 2-0, and it was the famous game where Diego Carlos got sent off for 2 yellow cards because of his little tussle with Openda. I'm just intrigued to see if Carlos starts tomorrow and Openda starts. That would definitely be, from a Leipzig point of view, I'd be looking at Carlos thinking, let's wind him up, because as competent as Carlos is as a centre back, he's a bit of a red card waiting to happen at times. So that's interesting. I think we've got to be at it. I think Leipzig, they've had a bit of a similar trajectory to us this season. They've had a miserable November. I think they had 1 draw in November. That was it. I think their last league victory was back in, it was the 26th of October. So with them winning on the weekend, and they've got Frankfurt, I believe, again on the weekend coming up, and then Bayern after that. If they get something out of those two games, I think they could potentially be second if results go their way as well. So like their momentum, like Markus was saying, I think they've got momentum right now. And even though the Champions League looks like it's sort of it's gone for them, I do think they want to keep that momentum going in the league. So they're going to look to this. Well, let's try and take a scalp. Let's try and take a Premier League scalp, and let's prove a point to people that we are RB Leipzig and we are a decent outfit. So I think we need to get something from this game. I think we'll beat Celtic in the next game, but I think in order for us to qualify in that automatic top 8, I think we need to get something from tomorrow. Personally,
the thing is as well, I mean, RB Leipzig, they're not in the Champions League for no reason. They're there because they deserve to be there. Every game's difficult.
No, absolutely. But it's to your point, Aaron, as well, in terms of it's sending a signal as to, okay, we've got 0 points in the Champions League, which is not good enough, period. But then we go up against a Villa at home. So it's important for the team to prove themselves in the Champions League, obviously. It's important for Marco Rosa, who up until, very recently, there was discussion about him losing his job or not. The players have been pretty expressive in saying that, listen, we have a great relationship with Marco Rosa. When they won against Eintracht Frankfurt, they celebrated with him. So there is definitely that harmonious relationship, if you may. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Marco Rosa still has to prove himself. And part of that is, while the Champions League might be now a gunner, it's about keeping your credibility intact as well. And so with 3 games remaining, it's as much about just preserving some sort of dignity because it's not been good enough. And it's a wider problem because Red Bull Salzburg have 0 points. They're 6th or 7th in the Austrian Bundesliga, and they always seem to win them. So for Red Bull, as far as Red Bull are concerned, it's a bit of a moment of reckoning this season. And you've already seen the sporting director at RB Leipzig go to Red Bull Salzburg because he didn't get enough power, etc., etc. Then you have Klopp coming in January. And so there's a bit of flux you'll see in the background, I think, as well. And then obviously New York Red Bulls lost at the weekend in the MLS Cup. So that was their one chance at silverware. So it's an interesting. It's always, I'd recommend looking into more so the Red Bull organization, because you could say it's arguably the most successful multi-club ownership model. Generally, I don't think multi-club ownership models have been that successful, but they've at least found some sort of synergy in place. That's always been their strength. They've had the likes of Upamecano, for instance, who goes from Salzburg to Leipzig, etc., etc., etc. And then it's under a bit of I guess challenges this season.
Sorry, Markus. Are they? Would you say that they're a bit too safe? Because if I'm correct, wasn't Marco Rosa at Salzburg first with the, and then I know he won a bit of silverware there. Then he's gone through to Leipzig. Is there an argument that they're not adventurous enough when it comes to sort of getting managers in, or are they a bit safe trying to keep it within the organization, or is there anything in that?
Well, I think the goal has always been to develop players as there has been to develop managers, right? And so you have that being the goal, and that being established by Ralf Rangnick, this model, and also a model predicated on high pressing, a lot of transitions and whatnot. And I think, if anything, maybe that style is coming under a bit of pressure in terms of, okay, well, is this always the way to play, and is this always the way to go in terms of how the game evolves? And so I think it's more so, as much as that model is successful in terms of, okay, we go from Austria to Germany to etc., and using that synergy, the playing style and what comes with it, and is it because of the coaches you develop within that style, with in mind the style of the wider game, do they synchronize? And so that's a kind of an interesting challenge that they face in terms of, well, what's best for RB Leipzig in terms of us competing and developing players, etc. And so, yeah, I think that's where you'll see more sort of the most, I think changes, if you may.
And Marco Rosa. Yeah, did he play? Did he play for? Was it Mainz?
Yeah, to be fair, I need to look that up.
He did. I checked. He did. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
That's it. Jurgen Klopp managed them, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, there's the whole, and then I mean, German coaching in general and German management, because you have a Tuchel that takes over after Klopp, and you have Nagelsmann, and you have Rose, and so it's all connected. And then that's why they say that Klopp coming in January was favorable for Rose. I don't think Klopp would have any interest of taking over in terms of from a managerial position or a coaching position, which you say in Germany. So there's a lot of power brokers in the background in the Red Bull system. And you have technical directors, you have sporting directors, you have the director of sports who is on the board. The whole power dynamics in Germany is entirely different than it is in England. And it's also a lot more pronounced. They're a lot more in the media. And so those power dynamics, they're a lot more out in the open than they are in England. And so, and especially with a multi-club ownership model as Red Bull have, they'll all have to do with one another.
And RB Leipzig, when I watched them, I found it fascinating. They're a possession-based team, and they do play out from the back. And what they do as well, Leipzig, they're very good at pressing as well. They work hard.
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
Go on, Mark.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, yeah, I agree. I think I was unsure. I think on the weekend, I want to say they played, or he played a sort of 3-5. I think there was like 5 in midfield, and the 2 wing backs sort of would tuck into the midfield when they're on sort of on the defense, and like I could see him. Because one of Villa's biggest things is sort of playing through the channels in midfield. We like to sort of pack it out a bit and really try and get in and amongst it.
Yeah.
And I feel like he may set up in a way where he's going to try and stop those balls coming in from like a Pau Torres or a Rodgers to try and like stop those channels. And I just thought that might be quite interesting. I think, because I know traditionally I think he likes a 4-4-2, but I think obviously as the game evolves and you've got to adapt to different teams, I do think from what I saw on Saturday, I think it's going to be more of a back 3 and then a back 5 on the transition. So I'm intrigued to see what he does. But when I saw them in pre-season, I was very impressed with Leipzig. I thought they were good, especially their forward line. I mean, the one thing we got going for us, I think they've got a few injuries. I think you likes of is it Poulsen? Javi Simmons, I think he's injured as well. So I think they've still got some great strikers, but it could have been a lot scarier if they were fit.
For the big thing for Villa, from an Aston Villa point of view, we need to press well when we haven't got the ball, and make sure we press at the correct time. I don't think it's actually a game. Aston Villa need to get 3 points. It's for them, I think. I don't think that's got a very good chance.
A big win, a big important game for Villa, undoubtedly, more than it is for RB Leipzig, arguably, in terms of the implications of it. But what a massive achievement if it is for Villa to get top 8 in the new Champions League format. I mean, there wasn't a long time ago since I remember you celebrating Conference League, and rightfully so, but because it was an indicator of levels, right? You couldn't go from 1 to 100 and whatnot. Yeah. So the progression there, and then to the first season into the Champions League, you would have maybe thought, okay, top 16 would have been, and as far as I'm concerned, it's rather close to securing that. But getting a top 8, then you suddenly find yourself in the last 16 of Champions League. It's massive also for the mentality of a club. Obviously, historically, a very successful club, but in terms of that, it's rather significant.
On the other hand, I think we need 2 more victories, I think, to secure it. I think we're almost there. So I reckon we will get top 8, I think. Gives ourselves a good chance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think just touching on Marcus's point, I do think this format's helped us as well. This new format coming in, I think.
Oh yeah, because what it is, it gives the other teams a chance of progressing.
Yeah, spot on. And I think it gives you these one-off games where we play Bayern Munich at home, and a packed out Villa Park on a Champions League night is going to be a tough test for a lot of teams. And these single games, like if we had to then go to Bayern Munich away, I think we'd struggle. But I think because it's these one-off games and you sort of build up the hype and the fans and the players get really sort of motivated for it, I think it makes for a better. I mean, obviously we're going to say that because we're doing quite well, but I do think it makes for a better league, and I quite like the format personally.
I like it as well.
Yeah, I think it's good. So we're definitely benefiting from that, and I agree with you, Chad. I think we're going to beat Celtic. I do believe that, and I think from Leipzig, I think if we can, obviously I want to win, and I think we've got the potential to win.
Yeah.
But I do think even if you come out with a draw, it might be enough. But I would like to think that we just go at it and just go at them, because they don't really have much to play for in terms of the Champions League. But like we've all touched on, they've got momentum for a different reason. So it's going to be tough. I'm looking forward to the game just to see how they're set up and how they play. And because like I say, pre-season was a great taster. It was a bit of a good teaser to see what was going to come, and we'll see.
Good on think of Villa. Whatever happens, we'll get in the playoffs. But if we could go automatically, that would be even better.
Yeah.
A great achievement.
Less games.
Just
For the
get it out
burnout.
of the way. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
going back to RB Leipzig, they are some very technical, gifted young players. I even like that Andre Silva. They got that Gertruda. And that Realm as well, I think. I think a German defender, I think.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit more in detail. So about Marco Rosa. So Marcus, what are your thoughts on him?
I'm generally a pretty I'm a pretty big fan of Marco Rosa. I like Marco Rosa, but it's important for him to have a successful time now with RB Leipzig, and then we can go back to what do we define as success within this format. But for context, people held him up as one of the Bundesliga favorites going into this season, with a sort of a weakened Bayern and a bit of uncertainty as to company and whether Leverkusen would replicate their success, which they haven't done to the same extent. Credit to company for it, obviously, but normality has been restored in the Bundesliga. So they were a bit of an outsider as such. A talented team, but Marco Rosa has been at Gladbach. He's been at Dortmund. Dortmund, he didn't last long. Towards the end of the season, then they removed him, brought in Edin Terzic, and lost sort of the trust there of the board. And it was tough for him because Edin Terzic was in the background. In the background there, waiting, lurking almost for the opportunity. But it's important time for Marco Rosa to be successful with them, because if you've been with Gladbach, okay, success, what have you, then what follows after that? And so a big fan of his, but it's ultimately the proof is in the pudding. he obviously needs to qualify for Champions League with RB Leipzig, but you would like to see them take a step further. I think what Leverkusen's success last season did was actually to remove some of the excuses that the other teams had. Dortmund had sort of accepted that they were perennial outsiders, challengers, and obviously should have won until the last match day, in which they failed to win against Mainz, which still haunts them to this day. Still haunts me, and I'm not even a Dortmund fan. And so it's sort of taken away a bit of that excuse. And so RB Leipzig have been where they've been for a long time. Yes, they won a cup and whatnot, but where's the next step? And I understand it's tough when you lose like bigger players and whatnot, but I say it again, it's one of the most talented teams in the Bundesliga. Yes, not having Xavi Simons there for an extended period, you miss him, but there's plenty there. And those last few weeks have and that November put a real damper on terms of Leipzig's season. They were top of the Bundesliga. They won't compete for it as far as I'm concerned. He sort of saved his season. He saved their season by going through in the cup against Eintracht Frankfurt, which was a strong result, 3-0. Don't get me wrong. But then you're out to the Champions League as well. So it's still very much on a knife's edge in terms of how RB Leipzig will proceed this season. And that's why, like I said, the cup was so important for them.
As well, there's a lot of comparison with Unai Emery. I think they are very similar, Emery and Marco Rosa, and because he's brought good success to his team in a short period of time and consistently getting them performing.
No, I agree.
Also, yeah.
He's no mug. Sorry, he's no mug. I mean, you look at whatever team he's been with, whether it's Mönchengladbach or I'm sorry if I can't pronounce these names properly, or if it's Dortmund or when he was in Austria. He's no mug. He gets fairly deep into European competitions. I think the fact that although we're talking about, or Marcus is talking about him underperforming this season and sort of the threat of losing a job potentially, they're still up in the upper tier of the Bundesliga, and I think credit to him. Is it very much the notion that are the thoughts sort of with the media that these next few games, if he doesn't do well, he's sort of gone? Because I've seen names like Graham Potter, Erik ten Hag even linked with his role. So I don't know, is there truth behind that? Is he going to see out the season? Are Leipzig off? Are they like one of these clubs that will get rid mid-season, or will they let him see it out, sort of thing?
Yeah, if you asked me, if we talked 2 weeks ago, I would have been very, very confident that Marco Rose would not last until Christmas. To be perfectly honest with you, and then with that 5-1, it was a big statement from RB Leipzig saying that, we're going to stay put with Marco Rose, and players sort of suggested that they wanted to continue working with Marco Rose. That's why I think that Frankfurt game was so pivotal in terms of him keeping his job or not. What adds to the equation is the fact that they have a Christmas break in Germany. And so coming back then for the second half of the season, what then will follow? It gives teams a bit of time to decompress, to analyze in terms of how it is to go forward. You mentioned that they're playing against the Bayern. I think, and obviously going up against Villa here, and that, again, back to that is okay. Results-wise, maybe it doesn't matter too much for RB Leipzig as much as it does Villa. But this is Marco. It's in many ways it is Marco Rose having to prove himself again, to show that he has the proper stamp on the team. You could argue if you got rid of Marco Rose after the Wolfsburg game when they lost 5-1 and they hired someone new and they won 3-0, you'd have thought, oh, well, look, we're back to normal again. But the indicator of any good team is the consistency. And that's what RB Leipzig have been lacking. And then there's a broader analysis. Can you ensure consistency with injuries, with the younger team and whatnot? I think still that you could demand more from them. And but the problem is also add to the fact that even when RB Leipzig were top of the league, People were still not convinced of how they played. They hadn't played all too well. They didn't concede much at all. But it wasn't convincing as such. And so that's also part of it in terms of how you put your stamp on a team, in terms of how you play and express yourself. And I wouldn't say Rosa has been able to do that as successfully so far this season.
And Marco Rosa, he's got very good experience with a lot of the Bundesliga clubs. And he won that trophy, the DFB Pokal, in 2023. So yeah, so I think he's done a good job.
Yeah, it just depends. It just depends on how you measure it in terms of how you define success for RB Leipzig. They need silverware. That's why they got the cup, and that was important for them, to the dismay of every other German football fan, and having to see them lift it, just culturally speaking.
Yeah.
But yes, now it's another year in which their best chance of silverware is the cup. But I would have liked to see them even still. Let's see, with the last games remaining before the Christmas break. But there's no reason. You see Eintracht Frankfurt is in second place. And then Leverkusen third. Wolfsburg fifth. I mean, Dortmund's not even in the top 5 yet. So it's very much open still in terms of, at the very least, I think Bayern will win the league this season.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why RB Leipzig shouldn't be second and not be one of the main challengers. And so I think therein lies sort of the criticism. Eintracht Frankfurt's the youngest team in the Bundesliga. So you strip away some of those excuses as to why RB Leipzig shouldn't be up higher than they are. But they get a great chance to prove themselves tomorrow, and also a great chance to prove themselves against likes of a Bayern, etc. So yeah, we'll see. But I always like Marco Rosa. I hope he succeeds. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Well, guys, I'm coming towards the end of the podcast. So could I have a score prediction from both of you? I'll start with you, Aaron.
Ooh, pressure. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be confident. I'm going to go with a Villa win.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be quite tight, but what I think is going to happen, I think it might be a 2-1, but I think Leipzig might try and sort of play and try and come out a bit more, and we're going to get another one on the break. So I'm going to go 3-1 Villa, which might sound a bit out there, but I think we can do it. So 3-1.
Positivity.
It's got to be done.
What do you think, Marcus?
I think that you will see an improved RB Leipzig team, but they will go up against a tough Villa. RB Leipzig generally shouldn't concede too many goals, but have leaked a bit more lately. But I think I'll go with a 2-2 result.
Yeah.
I think you'll see a RB Leipzig team that will look to fire on all cylinders. They have a lot of potential going forward with Openda, Cesco, Nusa. So I think we'll see a pretty thrilling 2-2 draw. That's what I hope. And with a very diplomatic answer, I think.
Well, I'm gonna go for a 2-1 away win for Villa.
Love that, Chad. Positive.
Yeah, we'll get the job done, I think. Well, I gotta say, I've really enjoyed this podcast. Also, Marcus, you've been a great special guest.
Thank you. A pleasure being on and meeting you, and and speaking
Nice to meet
to
you.
Aston Villa faithfuls, of course, as well, and to speak about German football. So I really appreciate being on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really
thank you.
appreciate it that you got in touch with me, Marcus. I must have found you last minute.
Yeah. Well, I owed you since I saw you sent it earlier and I'd somehow missed it. So and so I'm glad that we were able to do this again.
Well, thank you for everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to make sure to subscribe. If you haven't, make sure to hit the like button. Give it a share. and give us a good review on our audio platforms, including Spotify and Apple. Give us 5 stars. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Well, thank you so much, Aaron and Marcus, for your time.
Thank you. Can I say one slightly unprofessional, but just quickly for the honest men out there, for the honest men of Ayr United, my cousin Colin is a massive Ayr United fan and will know Marcus from his playing days at Ayr. Would you be able to just give a quick shout out to my cousin Colin all the way up in sunny Ayr?
Yes, Colin. It is great to connect with Aaron and to hear of your Ayr fandom. It's this club that I fondly recollect my memories with. I love the people there, the stadium, and to see them do well in the league and improved since I was there fighting relegation battles. So now fighting for Premiership promotion is a great development and nothing less than what the club deserves. I'm glad Ayr get their deserved kind of time on the Villa Forever pod.
Well,
Thank
it's
you.
a great shout out. Give him a shout out. Well, we're going to wrap up this episode with Villa Forever and Up the Villa